The requirement today is to calculate salaries for these workers using their pay bands. Pay bands have been assigned to each person, and in doing this calculation, we'll be using a VLOOKUP to check and extract the corresponding or correct rate from within this table up here. So the table has got standard rates, a rate for overtime, and a rate for holidays. As we move across, we'll see that requirements have been defined in comments. The yellow boxes are all comments. So they've indicated what formula will live within the columns, the corresponding columns where comments have been inserted. So if you take standard pay, for example, it will be the standard hours multiplied by the standard pay rate. That's what's going to live in here. So if you keep going across, we will see different categories of payments. We have standard hourly pay, overtime, holiday, other payments, and then as we keep going to the right, we meet the gross pay is here. So if you see the gross pay, as they've indicated in the comment here, will be a combination of the standard pay, overtime, holiday, and other earnings payment. So, but as we keep going to the right, we have deductions. This one is really interesting, and this is where we are going to be using absolute referencing. If you see, for each category of deduction, a percentage has been indicated on the top there. So you find a situation where each person's gross pay will have these percentages applied to them. So you're already seeing absolute referencing there. Then here is a combination of all of the deductions. And then, of course, net pay is the gross pay minus deductions. So let's see. There seems to be some requirements up here before we start. Add all the formulas as indicated in the comments. Yes, we'll see. As we're going, we'll see what's been said in the comments. Make entries in the green background cells only. The rest are calculated cell values. Yes, so wherever we have green backgrounds is where we can make a free text entry. Every other place is calculated like that and that. And then even here as well, we might want to change the rates. So what else? Remember to use absolute referencing for the deductions calculation. That's true. We have only one row with the percentages. That needs to be applied down that way. We'll have to use absolute referencing. Let us start with the first person here. Let's assume he did a total of 35 hours. 35 hours, that person. Now, the exercise is, this person, John C, has got a pay band of C. The exercise is for us to go into this table and find the corresponding standard hourly rate for band C, apply that to here so that we can multiply against the standard hours to get the standard pay. So for this, we will need a VLOOKUP. Remember, a VLOOKUP or vertical lookup is an Excel function that searches for a specific value in the leftmost column of a table and returns corresponding values from another column in the same row. So take, for example, the leftmost column in this table is that. So if we are searching for C, it is going to find C. And then we need to tell it that we want to return a value only for the standard rate. So if we start, we'll say equal to VLOOKUP. What are we looking up? So the lookup value is C. Put a comma. Within table array, our table array is right there. That's our table array. And then column index. What column index do you want to return? Which column? So the columns are numbered starting from the leftmost one, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you see standard rate is column 1, 2. So we say 2. Now the last thing to put is true or false. So if you need an approximate match to the item that you're finding, you put a true. If you need an exact match, you put a false. In our case, we are looking for an exact match to C. So we would say false. So now we have 18.5. Let's see if that is correct. Is 18.5 the standard rate for band C? Correct. You can see it there. So then, what does the comment say on how to calculate the standard pay? It is saying it is standard hours multiplied by standard pay rate. So that will be equal to the standard hour multiplied by the standard pay rate. So that's that one, 647.5. Now, the complications will arise when we try to, now that we have one working, the next thing to do should be to drag down this. But watch what will happen. We're beginning to have NA error message. Let's just hover and see what Excel is saying. Excel is saying a value is not available for the formula or function. What does this mean? Let us double click into one of them. Let's double click into this one. Do you see what happened there? The referencing for the VLOOKUP moved. And this is because in our formula we have used relative referencing. In relative referencing, when you copy cells down the way we copied them, the formula changes, or it will adjust to the relative position of the rows and columns. So relative referencing will not work in this situation where we want to fixate on this table that has got the bands. So what do we need to do? We need to make sure we fix in the reference to the table so that when we drag, it doesn't change. This will require us to use absolute referencing. So unlike relative references, absolute references do not change when you drag formulas down. And how do you put an absolute reference? You use a $sign to put an absolute reference. Take, for example, the things we have on screen. We have $A, $1. It means the column and the row do not change when you copy the formula. The next one, A, $1, means the row does not change when you copy the formula. In this case, the row is 1, of course. And then the last one, $A, $A1, means the column does not change when you copy the formula. So in our case, what do we need to do? What we need to do is to make sure that the reference A3 down to D4 remains fixed, both column and row. So in order to fix the table into place, we will need to put absolute referencing for wherever we've mentioned the table. So if we double click into our function, you will see our table is referenced from A3 to D8. So one quick way to put absolute referencing is to press F4. The F4 key is a shortcut for putting those $signs. So if you as you keep pressing F4, the $signs will appear. First of all, it will apply to the column and the row. If you press it once more, it will keep toggling. Now it has switched off for the column. It has fixed the row. If you press again, it will go the other way around. The $sign comes before A now, and it's been removed from 3, which is the row. So let's press it once more, because what we want is to anchor the reference into here and then anchor it to here. So let's move to D8 as well and press F4. So we now have the formula in the way that I'm showing it on the screen. So we've anchored the ends A3 and we've anchored here as well, D8. So if I press enter on that, and then let's try to do the copy again. So if I drag this down now, we see it is now working. Just to test it, if we double click here, we see the referencing remains the same. If we double click here, the referencing remains the same for the table. So that's how to do it. Let's add some hours for people here. Maybe this person did 40 hours. This person did 27 hours. This person did 15.5 hours. This person did 35 hours. 35 hours. And let's stop there for now. Okay, so the next section is the overtime hourly pay. So let's assume this person did 5 hours of overtime during this period. We will try to pull out the overtime rate. If you look at the pay bands table, the overtime rate is here. So what we need to do again is to use the band, come in here and pick up the overtime rate. So it's the same VLOOKUP command, but now what's going to change is the column index that you're referencing. Remember, the first time it was 2, this time it's going to be 3. So you could immediately copy the command, or let's type it again, equal to VLOOKUP. What are we looking up? The pay band. In where you indicate the table, and this time press F4 so that we can fix it into place. And we are picking column index 1, 2, 3 for overtime, and then false because we need an exact match. So is that correct? Band C is overtime rate 0.9. Yes. So now what does the requirement say for this? It says overtime pay is overtime hours multiplied by the rate. So it will be equal to that multiplied by that. And that's correct. So if we copy this down, let's just make sure it's working fine. It seems to be okay. There are no, let's add a bit of overtime for the rest of the people. This person didn't do any overtime, this person did 6, and that person did 10. It's a workaholic. So let's just double click and make sure, double click that. It's looking up A in the table. Let's do a quick check. Is the overtime rate for band A 0.5? Band A 0.5, that's fine. So that's overtime hourly pay calculated. We move to the next one. Holiday wages. This person 5, and let's start. It's essentially the same thing again, but then we are just going to change the column index again. We're going to start with equal to VLOOKUP we're looking up band C, comma, within this table, press F4 to fix it, and we're bringing back column index 1, 2, 3, 4 for holiday pay, and then we need exact match. So for band C is holiday wage 0.4, correct. So we can now calculate the holiday pay total, which is holiday hours multiplied by the rate, equal to this multiplied by that, and we can drag this down to here. It's 0 for everybody. Let's put something for this person. Let's put something for this person. Okay, so other payments, there is no lookup against the table. These are just freehand entries. Maybe this person got a commission of $50, expenses of 10, that person $100 bonus, 0 expenses, that person of 25, expenses of $6. So this is just a summation equal to sum of that to that, and then we can drag all of this down. So we are making progress. Now that's the end of the earnings. We now need to calculate gross pay, and like we've seen in the comment here, gross pay is the standard pay plus the overtime pay plus the holiday pay plus this final one here, other payments. So because they are non-adjacent, you cannot use a sum that way. We'll need to put it exactly how they've got it here. We'll say equal to this plus this plus this plus this, and that's it. This person earned $714. So if we bring this down, that's it, calculated for everybody. Now this next area is very interesting. This is where we use absolute referencing in a much, not very complex, in a different way. Now, the PAYE tax for each person is the percentage, the corresponding percentage that is up here against the gross wage. So if you see all of these deduction categories, the percentages have been defined up here, and the exercise is to apply each of them against the gross wage and drop the value in the corresponding column. So let's start with the first one as usual, and then we can adjust the formula. Equal to the gross pay multiplied by the PAYE percentage tax. So that's done. If we drag this down, we'll run into the old problem again of referencing. If you see already, we are getting the value error. Value error arrives when you apply a formula that is expecting a number, and then the formula tries to execute and meet something that is not a number. If you double click, you're going to see that's true. As soon as you drag the formula down, the referencing will shift because we are using relative referencing. So we have to find a way to use absolute referencing to anchor this the reference to the tax to be in place and not move. So let's try to do it for the first one. If we double click this, the reference to the tax percent is T11. So if I go in there and press F4, I've anchored it in place. So for the gross pay, for now, I'm going to leave it because I want it to keep moving as we're dragging. But this reference to the tax percent here needs to be in place. So if I drag this, now it looks okay. Let me just check. If I double click, you see, if I double click the last one, it looks okay. But then if I want to use this same formula here and go across to the right this way, let me see what's going to happen. If I drag this to the right, I get numbers, but they don't look correct. Because take, for example, 2.5% of 714 is never going to be 0. So something went wrong there. Let me double click to find out. If you double click this, what is it? You see, because we used absolute referencing to anchor to the tax percentage. When we drag to the right, the formula isn't moving with us. If you see also the gross pay, because we drag to the right, because it's a relative referencing, Excel has shifted, and as you keep going, you will see it's been shifting. So you need to find a way to allow the referencing to move across to the right as you are going, and it needs to remain fixed to the gross pay column as well. So let's go back to the very first one and try to make these corrections. If you double click in there, you're going to see what we want to do is we want the referencing for the gross pay to remain always on row R. So what did we say before? In order to anchor the column, you need to put a $sign before it. So we say $R. In this way, we have anchored the referencing to the column. It will never shift left or right again, but it can shift downwards with the rows because we did not anchor the row. Now for these percentages for deductions up here, we want to anchor to the row. We only want to move to the right. We don't ever want to move up or down. So if you see the referencing for it is here. So we want to anchor to the row. We remove the anchoring for the column. So in this way, we only have the $sign against the row. The row will always be the same. So if we press enter and check again, let's drag this just to make sure everything is still working fine. Okay, nothing changed. If I double click, is it still working? Yes. Is it still working? Yes. Now, if I drag this to the right, you see something has happened there. Let's check with the very last one. Double click in there. You see it is referencing the correct percentage deduction, and it's still tied to the gross pay, even though we drag to the right. So it looks okay now. We can select the whole of these and drag downwards to copy across the formula. Now, we haven't finished yet. We need to sum up all of the deductions. Luckily for us, these are all adjacent cells, so we can use equal to sum and select the whole of this. and that is the total deduction for this individual. We drag it down, or you can copy down the formula, and that is the total deduction done. The final thing is the net pay. If you look at what they've said in the requirement, the net pay is the gross pay minus the deductions. So that will be equal to the gross pay minus the total deductions for each person. And that's it there. That's the net pay for this individual. We drag it down or copy it down, whichever is easier for you. And that's nearly all of it done. But if you go to the downside, you are going to see that we still have summations to be done. So these are just simple sums. Equal to sum. We sum up everything. And that's the how much the organization needs to pay out as a net pay. So we can copy these formulas across. Remember, if you right click and copy, you can paste formulas. Select the range that you want to paste into, right click, and you can see paste special. Paste special has got the option to paste formulas. So we click formulas and we have it. So that's a quick way to copy things across. We go here as well, right click, paste special, formulas, the same thing here, right click, paste special, formulas, or you can type the formulas, but this is pretty quick for us. So that's everything done. Some places it may not make sense, like this. We can remove this, we can remove this, we can remove. Yeah, so that's the exercise done.